JJ the CPA here. Hope you're doing well. You know, when I'm having to go through issues, you'll notice in the past I got a serious in the stern video, and then I got a hey video. So for the CPAs and EAs and tax professionals and attorneys and bankers, and they're like, man, how does this loan forgiveness work? So really what it comes down to is a lot of people are really kind of hanging their hat on this 1106D5. And I know that 1106D5 makes 1106D2 and 3 not valid. You know, it kind of says, hey, 2 and 3 won't come into play if you've done 5. Now, this will assume you've kind of read through this, and so I'm talking about the CARES Act. Get familiar with 1102. You really got to get familiar with 1106, really focus in on 1106D. And I'm telling you, you got to read it several times. I've got on my website, I just put it together as a public service, meaning you don't put in an email or anything, you know, it's no funnel. And, but anyways, on the website, I've got the CARES Act, and it's a version from it's the final version from the IRS, from the government. And you can actually, when you go in, you can click on each section, which is nice, and it'll jump you down. And it's laid out very nicely. So anyways, I get familiar with that. Then I've got an Excel spreadsheet on there. And what I did is I literally just copied everything from the law and made it a line item in the Excel spreadsheet, kind of like, okay, how do you really kind of figure this out? And really what it comes down to is this. So of course, y'all can practice the way that you want to practice. And here's the thing, I know as tax professionals and EAs and CPAs, we want to help our clients. It's kind of the personality typically that does those kind of services, is that we want to help our client. We want to help them save tax, right? So we kind of come with a mentality of, okay, well, we're kind of mini lawyers, right? A little bit, right? Because we're reviewing the law, we're reviewing tax law, and what's intertwined in the CARES Act are tax credits. We've got the ERC, the Employee Retention Credit, and the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act. There's some credits in there, and of course it affects payroll, and it affects what's getting paid in. Of course, we have the deferral of Social Security, employer tax, also in the CARES Act, all good stuff. And then I know for me, when we were going through getting all the stuff ready for PPP, I'm laying in bed one night, and I'm like, how did I get so involved in like pulling this together and the calculations, for my clients? And I was like, well, but I mean, first of all, I love my clients, right? I want to help them. And so you see them in pain, or you see them struggling or concerned, and like, what do I do? And, I tried to be up like boom, boom, boom before anything maybe even was coming out in interpretation. I was staying up late reading the law and really trying to interpret it. I mean, like literally up night and the whiteboards, you see some of the videos just from a few weeks ago, all to say that I just really got into, well, how does this work? And, you're pulling together payroll information and all that good stuff. And so on the front side, it seems likely that we would be involved in helping with that, because we're pulling together information that they're going to need, they're going to give to the bank. I was a little surprised to learn that there were other, any professional other than the applicant, that was filling out these PPP applications. I had some clients who are like, well, hey, are you gonna fill that out? I'm like, well, no, I mean, it's a loan document. I'm not going to fill out your application when you go to the car dealership or when you get in a line of credit. I mean, I can give you the info, but you're going to have to fill that puppy out. Of course, you're helping people figure out what the number is. And long story short, and I bet there's a lot of us out there. We're trying to help our clients. And so then we're kind of tied into it. And so maybe more the theme of this video is just to maybe help you pause and go, well, God, should I be involved in the rest of it? And I don't mean like shutting your client off and I don't know you, and right? But our clients were coming to us in their time of need, and we're helping them. And so it still kind of carries over, right? Oh, we're now in desperate measures, right? We're in a crisis, and so our clients still need us. And but then if we pause and we take a step back, it's like, how we talk about in ethics courses, or just, quite frankly, liability protection courses, or limiting, liability. But the biggest thing is, stay in your lane. What's the scope? We probably all hear that word, like scope creep, and it's like, man, I don't have any engagement letters here talking about, what I'm putting together and what my role is and all that good stuff. And I'm not worried about my clients, right? I mean, at this point, the way I've got my practice, most of my clients have been clients 5, 10, 15, 20 years plus. All to say this, that as our clients are coming back to us and they're saying, well, how do I get all this forgiven? Or, how does this actually work? So because we've been involved in the process, maybe, we now are like, oh, well, we need to be helpful with that. Now there's some CPAs that they've already made it clear, and some that were just like from the beginning, it's like, hey, this isn't what I do. I'm not gonna be able to help you with this. And so, long story short, I just think for the, for professionals that are involved, if this isn't normally what you do, maybe just pause and go, do I really need to consider, should I continue to be helping my clients interpret really now law, right? And so if you have attorneys, right, and this is maybe what they do, and I hate to say, like, well, are we practicing law and do we have to do that? Well, I don't know about you, but I won't even set up a client at the Secretary of State. They got to do that themselves. They got to do their own operating agreement. I really do try and stay in my own lane. In fact, I don't even do payroll. I haven't done it in 17 years. Meaning I want all the clients to go to a third party because I think that's a true expertise. And, what it comes down to on this one is that it's really the bank's decision. And, I know right now, maybe we're coming out of that week of a lot of emotion, and maybe some of the banks were providing additional requirements that maybe didn't need to be, or there was promise that something was going to be done and then it wasn't. And so right now there's there's kind of a sour feeling right now of, for those that didn't get the funding, about the banks. And I'm not even saying it's, I'm saying it's valid. Okay. I'm saying it's valid. But more what I'm getting at is that now we have another group of clients that didn't get the funding. And so maybe we turn our energy to now helping those clients. Not to say that you weren't already, okay? And I'm not even saying like, well, the people that got the PPP or the EIDL, well, they're good and they should be lucky, and you go figure it all out. I get all that, right? And I understand that maybe some of us are doing bookkeeping or we're looking at financials. But at the same time, I don't know about you, but I don't ever see my clients, if they're doing their own books, I don't see the check copies. I might every once in a while agree out a bank statement, but I don't do reviews and compilations and audits. My clients keep their books. I might make some tax adjustments, probably like a lot of you. Sometimes with the tax adjustments, I don't even know if I'm making them on the books. It's just related to depreciation, reconciling out loans and things to that effect. And most of those kind of clients, they're probably really just keeping books to what's their balance, and they want to know what their numbers look like. And then I know we have other clients that, we probably do bookkeeping. So we have a handful, we get the bank statement after the fact, but we don't ever get receipts ever. My engagement letter, probably standard is, I can trust my client, they have the receipts, good to go. So, with this forgiveness part, the client's gonna have to come up with receipts and check copies and prove what the dates were, and then also related to the payroll. So I get that there's some, professionals out there and they're doing that bookkeeping. So they are going to have that. And maybe they do really need to kind of quote unquote figure out what it is. But even in that regard, it's like, well, if you're doing the bookkeeping, you're not really writing the checks. You're not making decisions for the client. You're just taking their information and putting it into a format. And so, we may want to make sure we're staying in our lane for those that are doing that. Staying in your lane we're not going to go before the bank examiner on behalf of our client like the way we might if there was some kind of governmental audit. And the banks are going to need to make the determinations. And so this might just be a real encouragement to, when you stay in your lane, the thing to do is just refer them to the bank, in terms of, hey, what are the parameters of the forgiveness? Well, go check with the bank. So I've gotten a lot of emails about forgiveness, and I now have just a auto reply that just says, hey, if you have questions about PPP forgiveness, and the same thing with unemployment, I'm not going to be able to answer you, and here's why. There's so many different circumstances. Banks are going to do different interpretations. I don't know how many employees you have, and if you'll just stick with me for another 5 minutes, I don't know how many employees you have or what your salary is at all these different times. So I'm not going to be able to give you a complete answer. And so I apologize, but I'm not going to be able to answer any questions related to that. And same thing with the unemployment. Everything's different from state to state. So you might be in a different circumstance. These are people that are wonderful people that are just trying to figure things out that, they're not clients of mine, right? So I get that maybe I have a difference here. These are people that aren't clients. I don't know their circumstances, but then there are a group that are clients. And, but even with a group that are my clients, I would really just be staying in my lane, which is, hey, just check with the bank, just encourage them, check with the bank. And here's why. So if you look at 11D, right, and you look at 2, 3, and then number 4 is related to seasonal wages, but number 2 and 3, and then 5. So really digest, though, like what it's asking for, because I think if you just digested this, you'd probably go, you know what, I don't know that I really want to just go, oh, if you meet the qualifications of 1106D5, you're in good shape. There's kind of some liability in making a statement like that. So what you just want to really digest in here is that on 1106D, what it's really pointing out here is that it's only a limit on forgiveness. So someone going into 1106D is only the amount that would have been assumed to be already forgiven, right? So if you're looking at then 1102 and you got to spend 75% on payroll, or at least, and then no more than 25% on the other qualified expenses. So that has to be met first, right? You have to spend the money. There's really no disputing that. If you really go through, there's no disputing the fact that when you hit 1106D, this would only be related to the amount that is already assumed to be forgiven, right? So if they got 100K and they only spent 90 of it, this is all the expenses together, 1106D is only applying to the 90. The 10's not forgiven. Just ain't, okay? That's a legal term, ain't, So just know that on 1106D, it's about limiting the forgiveness. And then in number 2 and number 3, which I already know, you can say, well, but JJ, if I go to number 5, 2 and 3 doesn't matter. Well, how do you know your client's going to get to number 5, right? How do you know that they're going to rehire, So, or reduce down salary limitations. How do we know what the SBA is going to provide there? There's just too much unknown related to 1106D5, and we should know by dealing with the tax law. It's just not going to be as simple that on one day there's an evaluation to go, oh, everybody's back on the payroll, so all oxen free, you're good to go. Maybe, right? But to tell a client, you will be forgiven as long as you rehire, what's the liability in that? Maybe you don't care about that, right? So I'm just trying to give you some pause, maybe even give you a little bit of like, you know what, I don't really want to do that. You're right, JJ. That sounds like a great idea. I'll just tell them, hey, just go check with the bank. Because see, when we're dealing with tax law, we do have some say in what's going to be done. We do need to really agree with what's going on because we have to sign a tax return. Okay, we got to present it to a governmental agency, whatever it is. And then if you're, following Circular 230, right, got to have 2/3, chance that it would survive audit. You would have to believe that it was true, correct, under penalties of perjury. But you're signing off on it, you're handing it in. And typically, EAs and CPAs. They're there and they would be the defender of the position that they took with the client based on what the client gave them. But in this, there's not anything for us to sign as tax professionals or the attorney or the EA or the CPA. There's nothing for us to sign. There's nothing for us to defend. We're not going to be in the room. And, excuse me, you don't want to be in a position where, your client calls you up and says, well, you told me that I could do this. And then when I got in front of the bank, they couldn't do it. So that's why I just think it's important to say, you know what, here's what I think you need to do. Just contact the bank. Okay. So 2 more minutes. If you go to number 2, just take note that it's talking about the average for the 8 weeks, the average from 2/15/19 to 6/30/19, the average from 1/1/20 to 2/29/20, average what? Head count. And it's payroll by payroll. So if you're going to make some determinations, get that info. You're going to have your client figure out what they're going to do for that 8 weeks. Number 3 is talking about the wages and a reduction, but it's saying total and per employee. So you have to look at all that. And what you're comparing there, is similar dates, similar information, right? So there's a lot of analysis going back here, right? And then when you do hit number 5, know this, okay? It's saying not just, hey, if on June 30, boom, you hire everybody, you're good. Because before it gets to that, it's saying that, number 2 and number 3 don't apply, 1106. But it says you're going to compare headcount from 2/15/20, okay? What's that? And then you're looking at, let's see, a reduction in number of 2/15 compared to 2/15/20 to 4/27/20. What? So you're going, okay, what's the average head count between those periods? What's the salaries between 2/15, 4/27? Because the law says 30 days after enactment. Boom. Okay. Now it's an either or. You mean either one. It appears that 2 and 3 wouldn't be looked at. Now you got to remember, this is only on what was spent, right? If it wasn't spent, that is not getting forgiven. Period. The end. Period. 1106D5 doesn't somehow forgive dollars that weren't spent. Okay. So there seems to be a lot of individuals thinking that. And then last thing is this. Really have you, if you are feeling like you want to give some opinions on this or help your client, through the calculation or whatever the case is, really digest E3B, which is that when they're going for loan forgiveness, they're certifying that they got the money and what they did with it was retain employees and then all the other expenses. Okay. And then also take note that in 1106E, okay, 1 and A and B, okay, what you're bringing to the bank is payroll records, payroll journals, pay rates, literally for all the periods, not just on 6/30, not just for the 8 weeks, all the periods. You have to prove all of that, not you, your client. And it also includes unemployment filings. Okay, that's what you're bringing to the bank. So there's really no way that a bank's going to look at this and then not know about unemployment filings. Now, does that mean that if your client has people go on unemployment, somehow they're in trouble? No. All it means is they're going to be aware that there were employees not being paid by the company. And therefore, initially it's going to be, well, then where did those dollars get spent? And it can't just be like, well, per 941, here we go. So really focus in on those things. Now, if you heard all the technical that you want to hear, boom. Thanks for listening. But I think just back to the commentary, I think what it comes down to is let's not give my opinion, let's not give our clients false hope that it's as easy as, oh, you just rehire everybody. Okay. Well, maybe even if you rehire everybody, well, you have comparison dates that have to be looked at. And then I think you know as well as I do, if you're just really sitting back and just thinking about this, there's going to have to be something from the SBA but how does the client to the bank substantiate and prove that they actually reduced down or they eliminated the reduction of employees? They eliminated the reduction in salary. And is that really then, well, I spent all the money, okay? And then I hired people for 1 day. So I'm ollie oxen-free, meaning I spend at least 75% on payroll and 25% on, the other things, no more than that. And then, hey, come the last day, everybody's on board. Are they going to look at July, right? Are they going to look at the numbers aspect? And it doesn't seem logical to me that then when somebody's, increasing the pay, or 4 people are gone, and so all the people that are remaining get more money, or, whatever the case is. Now, if you got 4 people that leave and you're still open and you got to replace them, I think we're fine with that, but I do think there's a dollar amount. And I understand there's, quote unquote, people say, well, there's wiggle room and juggling and all that good stuff. I think that the overall theme, though, is I just don't think we should get involved with the juggling, okay? Now, if someone says, hey, can I hire some other employees? Maybe you should check with the bank, because you don't like, well, what pay and for what purpose, and are they related, and all that good stuff. So for me, I feel like I've done a great service for my clients by helping them gather up information. Don't get me wrong, like what I have on my website, I'm providing to my clients just the same, which is, here's the worksheets, here's these things. And then I'm not going to do the worksheet for my client. Now, it's just my personal choice, because there's a payroll company, and so how I take care of it, there's a payroll company that can provide that stuff. And then there's a bank that, with all due respect to the banks, love you, okay? But especially the ones that got the funding, right? This is who we're dealing with. You can do that work. You come up with the spreadsheet. You track it. You verify it, right? In some cases, I think the bank has the responsibility to, take that information and look at it. And I think the banks I'm working with, they're going to be like, just give us the info. We're going to run the numbers. Okay. You give us that. You show us where you came up with it, but give us the documentation. And they're going to have someone that's putting in that information, not you, and really probably not even the client, right? I know the bank may say, hey, go ahead and fill this out, show us how you got to it. And of course, the bank's going to verify this, right? And the banks have to certify this as well, okay? The bank isn't going to call you most likely and say, hey, what do you think of this? Did it count? They're going to look to what the SBA guidelines are, what their underwriters say, what their board says, right? Their loan committee, so to speak, to be able to sign off on this, right? I don't know about you, but I've never been able to influence a bank to make a loan, right? I provide information, they do the application, they make their own analysis. Now they may say, hey, can I get a copy of this? Well, I never send anything to a third party, ever. I'll say, well, client, here's what you need. You need to look it over and verify if that's what you want to send to the client or send to the bank, because that's your info, not mine. I'm not going to send it to a third party, ever. And we don't. Doesn't matter what it is. It can be a person's name. We're going to send it to the client and they can forward it on. But, if you're doing the payroll, then what's your job? I think here's the numbers, here's the averages, and you should be charging for that. If you're doing the bookkeeping, right? Well, here's your GL, right? But the definition of utilities, the definition of rent is still to come, I think. Any videos I've done, it's just been it just says rent. It doesn't say CAM, right? It just says utilities, right? And then what we've known to be utilities, okay? We've been given it's just your, what grandpa would say utilities are, right? And so any questions of, well, would this count and this count and this count? Why are we answering those questions? We're not going to be in front of the bank. We're not going to be able to certify one thing. In my opinion, it's all the client. So our clients are looking to us. We just have to remind the client, we're not the ones to look at for this. It's actually the bank, because the bank's making the final determinations. The bank's going to use their guidelines, their opinions, their interpretations, and rightfully so. Now, hopefully everybody's got the same guidelines and everybody's interpreting it the same, but you know as well as I do, if you dealt with a number of banks, everybody had their different interpretations. I finally had to relax and just go, okay, well, let's just get them the info that they're asking for, even though I don't necessarily think that that's required. Okay, but here you go. Here you go, client. Here you go, client. So if you're quoting 1106 D5, then really look at what it is and at least get that information. If you feel like you are going to make a determination with the client, then get all these head counts, okay? And you can't just skip 2 and 3 assuming your client can do D5, because what if they can't? What if they spend all the money and they can't rehire everybody? The money's gone, okay? PPP money comes in, it's all forgiven, they spend it perfectly, okay? All D5 does is that it's going to limit the forgiveness. It's not going to help it forgive more. How do you know what's really going to happen on this June 30, let alone the SBA? You don't know that. Just the same as, if a client says, hey, budget with me, what are my sales going to be next month? You'd be like, well, how would I know that? Other than historical. But we don't want to give our clients a false hope. We don't want them to think, oh, okay, so all I have to do is hold on to this money, hire everybody back on June 30, and then money's mine, and I can use it going forward. Not even saying they're doing anything bad with it. And then the other aspect is just to really remind the client in closing, that for 8 weeks, it's a grant, right? It becomes a loan if it's not forgiven. It then becomes a loan. Money's not that small business owner's money, okay? It's the government's money that's been entrusted. Someone actually said, I don't know why I took this PPP money, because I'm realizing all I am now is an unemployment agency for my clients, for my employees, and now I'm running all these risks that what if they go on unemployment or whatever? And I just was like, well, if you're not spending the money, then you'll have it left over and you just hand it back. Yeah, but that's true. So I just think the theme is, for me, with my clients, is just, spend what it is that you need to spend. Well, what if I need to hire an extra person? Well, hire them, okay? You're going to have your payroll. Don't just assume that by hiring somebody and using up a little payroll extra here because you didn't have enough utilities there. Don't just assume that's going to make it A-okay, right? Because these are all averages. Now, maybe the average comes out and works okay because, for whatever reasons, this had to happen or this had to happen or this had to happen. But really digest, get that Excel spreadsheet and go through that. I think you'd be like, holy moly. That's why the video, I was like, it was a crazy calculation and I didn't even get to 3 and 5. And I alluded into this video that says crazy calculation. I'm like, this is why I'm not even going into 3 and why I'm not going into 5, okay? So, a lot of CPAs out there and they're saying, oh, you're fine, just hire everybody back. Boom, liability. Okay, and even if you're like, oh, my client's not going to do anything to me. Well, they're going to be happy with you if at the end they don't get forgiven for everything they thought, because they just thought that you guys all go on unemployment. I'll just give myself a raise, a few of the other employees. Or even if it's like, well, they go on unemployment, I'm going to hold on to the money, but if I rehire everybody by June 30, sweet, everything's forgiven. So that's the one that, that's just out in the press or something, because almost every client I've had to be like, no, you do have to spend the money. You do have to spend the money in the way that it's intended, okay? And no, you can't just maneuver money around to try and help forgive. Just pay what you normally pay. Just relax. Just pay what you normally pay. Well, I need to hire somebody, and you're saying I can't do that? No. What I'm saying is, when you're done, you're going to go, here's what my payroll was. Here's what my head counts were. Here, 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 here. And that June 30, here's what my dollars were in all these different spots. Here's my utilities. Here's this, here's this, here's this. That's one crazy calculation that maybe by pure luck, somebody that maybe gave a raise or this or that, somehow just the way the numbers came out, it's like, oh, well, I walked away with this. So don't give your client false hope that, oh, yeah, if you go to this casino and you go into the back corner and get yourself that one that says Fire Lake on it, make sure it's got the 3 flames on it, put it in, and if you just put in $100, just know that if on the last dollar, you'll just go one more dollar right at that end, right before midnight, right? Like right at the stroke of midnight. Make sure you put $100 in, then put that dollar in, and then you're gonna win, right? Or you would say, hey, don't worry about it. You just hold on to your $100. Just hold on to it. You be at that casino, you be at that, the whatever I just said it was, the the gaming thing. What am I doing? The slots. Thank you. And go, don't even worry about spending the $100 because if you just put in $1 right at the stroke of midnight, you're going to pocket that $100. Right? It doesn't even matter if you hit the jackpot. You're just going to be able to pocket the $100. How do you know that that's really going to work itself out? Right? So anyways, just really digest it. I mean, really do. And so for the wonderful people out there that, you know, if you watch my other video and, well, that was meant for some people. And very specific people that probably, I don't know if they watch it or not, I don't really care. But there are some people that maybe need that kind of encouragement, okay, by a black hat, a heavy hand, okay? And I'm happy to deliver that. So just really digest it. And I'm just saying, give yourself permission to go, you know what, I really help my clients. They got the PPP. I'll be there to help support them. But when it comes down to can I, should I, am I able to, just send them to the bank. And then we got a lot of people over here, and my videos are going to start focusing in on that. What if you didn't get the PPP? Now we got people that are still in the crisis. What if you didn't get it? And I'm not saying at all that you're not focusing in on those people, but we help these clients, right? They got their PPP, they got a bank working with them. And if they really want to go through the legal aspect and work it all out for whatever reason, so they can really understand it, right? And as accountants, I know we're like, hey, we got a problem to solve. I want to calculate this out. How does it really work? Just like I have. But they have a bank, okay? I want you to think of this. If they got $100,000, the bank got $5,000. Okay, great, okay? So they got information that you prepared. And even though I've heard like, well, my CPA charged me $750 and I don't like comment on other people's fee. I was like, well, I mean, if they had to pull a bunch of crap together for you and actually prepare Schedule C and then give you the numbers, and it was $750 and it was $750, right? So how much are you going to charge $5K? Probably not. You can charge $5K to pull payroll numbers and get receipts and get this. Let's just even say like, well, I'm going to charge my client for that, and, you know, $1,500. I mean, I don't know how you spend. I don't know how you would have a ton of time in that because just pulling info from the past. Here's what happened. I'm pulling the info. I'm putting together. Here's a spreadsheet. I mean, even if you charge $2,000, okay? The bank's making $5K. Let them do the work. Let them do the interpretation. They're making the money. Why would you do all the heavy lifting for the bank? Not even saying that not to be helpful, right? But why do all the heavy lifting? Okay, and I know right now if you can be saying, well, that's not, you know what, JJ, I don't do stuff based on me getting paid. I go and do stuff based on helping my client. Great. You're wonderful. Good. I'm glad that you're helping your client. But then just make sure that you really are digesting this. Because I'm sure that the ones that are flinging out 1106D5 don't even know. You couldn't. Every single one of them. That you have a date from 2/15 to 4/27. You have a date of 2/15, okay? You have a comparison. You have SBA guidelines to come. Are they going to actually do it? You have a salary to compare from the same time period, right? How do you know your client's going to actually spend the money? So I'm not at all saying you can't help your client, you shouldn't help your client, but just remember that bank got 5%. Let them do the work. And here's the thing. In closing, you don't actually influence one thing. You don't influence anything. Your interpretation actually doesn't mean anything unless a bank hires you to help them interpret what the law is, as well as these guidelines that have already come out and guidelines to come. So with all due respect, why are you making an opinion on something that you actually have zero control over the outcome related to that? Because when we're doing tax returns, and even if we're doing bookkeeping, right, we have control over the result. And we also have control to go, well, if the client wants to do this, this, and this, then I don't want to be a part of that, right? And I know I said in closing, but for those of you think of this that are in the tax world, if your client came to you, okay, and said, hey, real quick, let me ask you a question. If I don't deposit the cash, do I have to report it? Well, first of all, yes. Second of all, because I've let go of clients literally over that, you say, you're going to jail. I mean, there's no threshold for not reporting income. It's either all or you've committed a crime, right? Now, we could argue about expenses all day long and interpretation of expenses and things to that effect. So you draw your own parallel. But if a client came in and they're like, hey, real quick, how do I not report all this income? Okay. There's probably not an attorney, a tax professional, an EA, or a CPA, or a banker, or an attorney that's going to contribute to that, or answer the question, or, well, let me think about that, or, well, let's get a spreadsheet out and let's try and figure out how to make that work so that you don't have to report all your income. So our clients are hearing the word forgiveness, and maybe it's just the wrong terminology for the government to pick on this, because you think of forgiveness, it's like, oh, I did something wrong. I got to go and get forgiven because I did something wrong. So it's kind of set this tone to it, and we want to help those clients. You can help them by saying, hey, why don't you go ask the bank? They're going to make more money for, how long is it going to take them to do a bank exam for $5K? I mean, if I'm charging a client $5,000, I mean, that's a significant amount of time. Not to say that the bank won't spend a significant amount of time. But $5K on $100K, right? $50K is $2,500. You got someone that bank gave them $250,000, $1 million. They make a $50,000 fee, right? So anyways, this is the video talking about the same concept in a nice bright shirt on a Sunday afternoon, saying, hey, we're helping our clients. Great job. Stay in your lane. If you're not going to stay in your lane, really digest this thing, get the information, and you better be charging a lot of time and effort to it, because in the end, it's going to be a lot of time and effort. But then give yourself permission to say you have a bank that you're actually doing this with. So go to them and get the interpretation. If you want to change a salary, ask them. If you have people on unemployment and you're not going to spend the money and you need to know if you can give a raise, or ask them. When they say, well, how does 1106D5 work? Ask them. You know, well, but I can't you help me just, I need to know the average. Ask your payroll company. Well, I need the average of these. Okay, I will get that for you. Here are your numbers for that period of time. Well, does this work? Go ask them. Every bank so far that I've worked with has literally a different worksheet on how they calculated the loan, what they wanted included, did it include this or that, and how did it fall in, right or wrong. They all had different ones. So you can say, hey, go get the formula. Well, can you help me figure out the formula? No, because the bank can do that for you. The bank gave you a document that should help you figure that out, right? So, I've had a few that's like, hey, do some more videos on the loan forgiveness, and I might do some that just kind of out of curiosity, here's how the math works. I've had a couple of freaking awesome CPAs and CFPs that have, said, hey, we put together the spreadsheet and kind of to track it. I'm just interested because I'm a numbers person. But I'm just saying, even though I may do a couple videos on it, I'm really not going to answer any questions about, does this qualify, and if I have employment here and I have that, only because, not because I'm not trying to be helpful, only because you should just go ask your bank. The last thing you want is a client to be mad at you that they didn't get something forgiven that they thought you said would be, and how much money did you even make, if I'm just being a business person too, right? All I'm saying is probably a lot of us, we're helping, we're providing the advice. Are you really charging for it? Should you charge for it? Yeah. But is that what you're going to do for we don't have PPP applications every year like tax returns, and bookkeeping like every month, and payroll like every month and every quarter and every year, right? So my grandfather told me, Omar Abbott Slater CPA, my hero and mentor, wish he was still with me, but he was like, he didn't use the word stay in your lane, but he was like, pick what it is that you're good at and then just do that. And then make sure you only keep doing that. because that's the best way that your clients will continue to be happy with you. And don't do things that either you don't have time for or you're not really sure about, because that'll be the one that ruins the relationship on what you actually are doing for them, what you're making the revenue for. All right. Hey, thanks for listening if you made it to here. And you know what? I'm feeling optimistic about next week, and I'm feeling optimistic, and it had nothing to do with the 250 billion maybe that's coming. I'm feeling optimistic though that there's going to be some good things coming for the ones that did not get the funding. What are those things? Stay tuned. All right. Hey, y'all have a great day. Thanks for watching. If you would, I'd love it if you'd subscribe. I really appreciate that. And then we go live 4 p.m. Central Standard Time to try and answer questions. But I will stick to my guns if they're related to PPP forgiveness and unemployment. I'll just say, need to check with your state, need to check with your bank. And I look at that's a true service to the person that's a little lost, to the person that's a little worried, to the person that's even whether they're trying to do the right thing or the person that's trying to figure out how to weasel through it, to say, you know, here's the favor I'm really doing to them. Go ask the person that actually is going to make the decision. All right, hey, you've never met a CPA quite like me.